Hi, I'm Saranel Benjamin. I'm Senior Program Officer at Want and I manage the Informal Economy program here. Want is an international non-for-profit organization that works in the Global South, providing support to social movements, trade unions, and other grassroots movements in their pursuance of social justice, social and economic justice. So I'm here just to talk to you a little bit about what we do at Want in the Informal Economy program, and just to start by giving you a definition of the informal economy. The International Labour Organization defines the informal economy as any type of employment lacking secure contracts, social protection, or worker benefits. It includes the self-employed and own account workers in unregistered enterprises, employers and their employees in such enterprises, and includes unpaid family workers. Those employed informally by registered firms, including industrial, casual and day workers and contract workers who also lack worker benefits, are included in this definition, as are domestic workers. The informal economy informal work accounts for 1.8 billion of the world's population of the self-employed peddlers, hustlers, hawkers, street vendors. Informal employment makes up 1/2 to 3/4 of non-agricultural employment in developing countries, with a majority of 72% in sub-Saharan Africa. More than 60% of women workers in developing countries engage in informal, non-agricultural employment. Whilst informal employment is becoming more prominent in the West, it has long existed in developing countries in the South, where full-time waged or salaried employment are the exception rather than the rule. In the South, many of those who work in the informal economy as hawkers, street vendors, and marketers tend to also live in informal settlements. In some cities, up to 80% of the population lives in urban informality. In sub-Saharan Africa, those living in informal settlements are about 200 million. There's a common misconception to view this in a dualistic way, having two separate sectors where the informal is understood as marginal, residual, and an appendage to the formal. The two intersect and interconnect in varying and fluid ways, and the lines between them or separating them become blurred. There's another misconception that the informal economy and urban informality is unregulated because they appear to lie outside of state regulation. In fact, urban informality and references to informal settlements or slum settlements by some international organizations tend to label these as illegal, thereby criminalizing those who live in informal settlements and the organizations who try to organize them. Likewise, in many countries in the South, specifically sub-Saharan Africa, these countries don't recognize or make informal trading illegal. However, if we say that it is unregulated, we ignore the multiple power relations, solidarity, and agencies at work. The informal economy and urban informality is regulated through a multiplicity of rules, institutions, and a variety of factors beyond the state, including associations operating in the informal economy and in informal settlements. So Want's Informal Economy program addresses these common misconceptions. It sees the informal economy as a significant and visible contributor to mainstream economies, that is vital for impoverished and marginalized communities to secure livelihoods, and that it is a vibrant space of agency and solidarity. It also recognizes that those who live in informal settlements have a right to shelter and a life of dignity. Want has framed the Informal Economy program under the Right to the City framework. The right to the city is about democratic control over the city, with the right to access, occupy, and use urban space. Want has defined the right to the city as the right to live and work in the city, as well as the right to engage politically with the city. The right to live in the city engages with social movements in South Africa. Abrishlali Base Mjondolo in KwaZulu-Natal and Housing Assembly in the Western Cape are two Shaktwela movements organizing communities to campaign for the right to decent housing in the city. South Africa has one of the most progressive constitutions and Bill of Rights in the world. It secures the right to human dignity, the right to housing, including the right to due process with regard to court-ordered evictions and demolition. It also secures the right to food, to water, healthcare, and social assistance, the right to be protected from violence, the right to freedom of assembly, and the right to protest. However, 21 years after democracy, there's been an increase in the number of people living in informal settlements. This is largely due to rapid and increased urbanization, as well as the state being unable to meet the target set for providing social housing. Most of the urban informal settlements are made of corrugated iron, plastic or cardboard. Most receive water from standpipes which stand outside of their homes and not inside their houses. Oftentimes, some households have to walk about 200 meters or more to access water. Most households living in informal settlements do not have access to a flush toilet within their homes, but rather make use of chemical toilets or pit latrines. In most cases, hundreds of people from various different households have to share one toilet. Most informal settlements do not have access to electricity and have to use paraffin or gas. In the last 3 months, there have been outbreaks of shack fires in at least 3 settlements in KwaZulu-Natal, displacing thousands, and at least 2 people were killed in those fires. Most people who live in informal settlements live with the constant possibility of being evicted, and recently, over the last 5 years at least, violent tactics have been used to evict people from their informal settlements. Of the 2,000 plus protests which have been recorded since 2004 in South Africa, the majority have been on service delivery, access to water and sanitation, electricity and housing. Just over 15% of these protests were on housing. And since 2004, 43 people were killed in service delivery protests. This excludes those killed in the Marikana mining tragedy. Since 2010, there's been an increase in deaths related to service delivery, with it peaking at 11 in 2013. The right to work in the city sees Want working with 2 informal trader organizations, the Alliance of Zambian Informal Economy Associations, ASEA, and the Kenyan National Alliance of Street Vendors and Informal Traders, KNASFT. Both organizations organize street vendors, marketers, and hawkers in urban centers in Zambia and Kenya. Because of the lack of recognition and value attached to informal traders and the contribution they are making to the formal economy, members of ASEA and KNASFT face regular harassment, violent evictions from where they are trading, and are often subjected to bribery and corruption, all of these conducted by local authorities. This affects their ability to trade. Already informal traders earn below the poverty data line, with the burden of care falling squarely on women to care for household well-being. Many women informal traders engage in risky strategies, which include cutting back on food consumption, carrying additional loads of reproductive care work in the home, and doing away with healthcare altogether to ensure that there's enough in the household budget to make sure that the whole family has enough food to eat. In times of crisis, it is the girl child that is often withdrawn from schooling first, often to assist with reproductive work in the household or with home-based work or in informal trading on the streets. Want's work with shack dweller movements in South Africa focuses on protecting informal settlements and shack dwellers from evictions through legal assistance and legal advocacy, building rights awareness through training and campaigns, and building strong representative organizations through organizational development. As a result of this project, the shack dweller movements have been able to campaign for more progressive interpretations of what constitutes a home, clarifying the parameters for evictions, and ensuring that shack settlements are electrified, that they have access to water and sanitation, although what is still provided at the moment is still inadequate. Most importantly, the project has enabled the organizing of shack dwellers into movements that have been able to collectively articulate their demands and needs to the state. With informal traders in Kenya and Zambia, Want has supported both organizations to build the rights awareness of informal traders, ensuring that the representative organizations have strong capacity to negotiate, lobby, and advocate for the improvement of informal traders living and working in Zambia and in Kenya, and that informal traders have the necessary skills to improve their trading ability and therefore their incomes. In Kenya, KNASFT has successfully lobbied for the development of an act that recognizes informal traders. This is the first piece of legislation in sub-Saharan Africa that recognizes informal traders and the contribution they make to the informal economy.